Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of the Sleazy video. So today we're doing a bit of a will it start. So we've got Stewie here. He's in for a bit of a stitch up. I've given you guys a bit of a hint in the previous video for the Landau what he's going to deal with, but it's about time we see what kind of motor we're going to try to get running so that we can put into Sleazy for free. Are you ready, Stewie?
Pumped.
I've pre-warned you. So you agree? I've pre-warned you.
Yes.
There's going to be some rat poo. There's some stuff missing. The motor's been sitting for a while, so it's been pilfered and it's been in the elements, but the bonnet's been on. This was a supposedly rebuilt motor about 10 to 12 years ago. So
that's quite recent.
Yeah. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Here's the big reveal.
Yeah. Oh yes. Oh nice.
Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah.
Be honest. What's your first thoughts, mate?
I don't like our chances is my first thought, but I am an optimist at heart. And I know you know these motors, so I'm definitely keen. But that's unique. It looks a lot more like a mooring block I used to have than an engine, but...
So this is our challenge for today.
Yeah.
I'm quietly confident that we can get this rat turd motor up and running. Shall we get started?
Absolutely. I'm actually...
Let's take this bonnet away and let's get it done, eh?
I'm actually excited to see if you can do it.
And we'll grab that side and we'll...
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, nice. Even comes with spare parts.
Okay. Right, here's what we're looking at inside the ports. It's not looking real healthy.
Yeah, right.
But let's get the shop back. Let's clean it out. Let's clean out the distributor hole and see what we're left with, eh?
This is the most roadkill thing I've ever done.
I'd like to say that it is for me, but it probably isn't.
Yeah, right. Is that your plug for...
Yeah, the rat-made plug.
Oh, right. Not... Oh, yeah.
Oh no, it was mine. Look at that.
Well done. How organised were you?
Wow. Actually, put it back.
Yep. I was just thinking, yeah, it's... Alright, it's looking marginally better.
Almost looks like a motor we can start soon, mate.
Yeah. Deturdification is almost complete.
Nothing wrong with that push rod.
No. Bit of a hit on the wire wheel.
You're giving your opinions there, Parko.
I certainly am.
Go on.
My opinions are, mate.
What's the claim?
What's the claim? Are you trying to get me to say that you're not going to get it rocked over? No, I knew you'll stick around and you'll get it done even if it's like the same time tomorrow morning. But
so you reckon I'll prove you wrong? Am I going to get it running or not?
Have you taken out the bent rods?
Not yet. There's no bent rods in this one, in this particular motor.
Oh, so you're only running this one, not that one?
Just this motor. So you've been putting crap on me for days, Parko. Am I going to get it running or not? Moment of truth today.
I reckon you're going to have problems with the lifters. Big time.
That's all right. Sleazy's got some lifters.
It does, yeah, as long as they're not chewed out by the... See how you go on the slides. I don't know, as far as I can see, mate.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit of air gun action after
your
this.
lifters and rods are what's going to feed you, but I don't know. Alright, we'll probably get it going. Have you had the bottom end out?
Of this?
Have you dropped the sump or not?
No.
That'd give me my final decision, put it that way.
Well, you got to make a judgment call now, mate. You're the one putting shit on us today. You got to make the judgment call.
Okay, all right, I'll make the judgment call. What's your duration you're giving yourself to get this?
I want to get this running by the end of today. By dark.
What
11:59.
7 o'clock.
Tonight?
Yeah.
7 o'clock
Yeah.
you're calling it?
Yeah.
What's the time now?
The only exception to that
Oh,
I
here
would
we
say,
go.
no.
Curly.
The only exception I would say to this not running, we are going to test it as part of today's procedure, is if the oil pump itself has failed, if the valve is stuck open for the pressure relief valve. They do get stuck open when they sit for a while. That requires a sump removal. But as long as we've got oil pressure from the pump and the relief valve isn't jammed open, I'm making the claim that I think we can get this running by 7 tonight.
Well, you've got them in the hoard house.
I do have them, but I don't think if I have to change that I can get it running by 7 today. That's all.
Pressure relief stuck open in a good pump. What pressure do you get?
Nothing.
Nothing. Just total.
It just bypasses.
That's it. Will not pressure them.
Righto. Anyway, boys, let's get involved. Righto, we headed to the back again. Almost have a clean engine. Alright, so we're just going to strip off these rockers now as the next step, and do a little bit more cleaning, and then start to look at getting some oil pressure happening, hopefully, fingers crossed. None of them seem to be bolted down, which is good. So the likelihood that the valves have been closed this entire time is quite high. So hopefully the actual cylinder walls and piston rings will be perfectly fine. And we're only having to deal with a mess in the top end. Righto, all these can come out now. Rockers, push rods, get them out the way. Righto, a bit more cleaning to be done inside the lifters, and carry on. Righto, so we're pretty happy with that now. We've cleaned out as much crap as we can. Check the dipstick. There's a potential sign of water that's gone in the sump, but not a hell of a lot if I'm honest. So I think we're going to try to crank him over using the oil pump drive, going through where the distributor sits. So let's do that now, eh? We'll see if we've got some oil pressure through to the lifters, and if we have that, then we take it from there. So we take our little protection piece out.
Ooh, give it a little vacuum.
Yeah, give it a small vac. You may not be able to see it too well, but the oil pump drive is in there. We're going to turn that around and hopefully get some oil pressure all up along through this valley, and confirm that there's no issues with the pressure relief valve, that it is actually pumping oil. If it is, then we can actually continue. Without that, it's kind of pointless. We're going to have to drop the sump if that's the case, and I don't know that we want to spend that kind of money on an unknown motor. Righto, we've got the heavy duty drill bit. Let's crank this oil pump.
Not on hammer, is it? Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm even going the right way.
Yeah, right.
Is this reverse?
Yeah, it does. No, that's reverse there, I think. So
Yeah.
forwards. Oh yeah, oil.
There you go, look at that. Look at oil.
It's a beautiful thing.
Look at that. Squirting out of all the lifters.
Of all the water.
Oh, that is water, you're
Yeah,
right.
that's all water.
Okay, so let's dry this up. Let's Well, the good news is, regardless, we know that the oil pump is working. So,
And your bypass valve's closed.
yeah, so we should be able to lubricate this bad boy.
Yeah, a lot of water.
Oh,
Maybe we should drain this some.
That's alright, we'll get the water out first.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it doesn't matter if there's water inside the bearings and stuff for the moment. We're going to literally start it today and wash it all out.
Wash it out, yeah.
Once we know that it's running, we'll drain the sump and we'll give it a service when we actually put it into SLEEZY, I think.
Yep. Sounds like a plan.
Yep. Righto, so we've pretty much run out most of the water from here. You can actually have a listen to the drill. It's starting to load up as the viscosity gets thicker because it's actually pumping oil through. So let's have a look. Righto, plugs are out. Why don't we show the people what the plugs look like, Stewie? They're not too bad, are they?
Yeah, no, they're pretty good. Pretty good. I think this is our worst one.
Let's have a look, shall we?
This is our worst one for sure. And the rest are pretty uniform.
Okay.
This one's a little bit lighter, maybe it's a little bit richer, that one.
But I think we can use these plugs. It's looking good. So we were actually just discussing, Stewie, and I have to correct it. I thought it's been about 10 to 12 years since we've run this motor, but I worked out when I actually bought this car that the motor came out of. It was a Dana vehicle. It was an XC GXL, and I probably would have bought it in 99 or 2000. So the reality is it hasn't actually turned over or driven since. We've at least got oil pressure. We're now going to maybe look at putting some WD or inox into the cylinders where the spark plugs have been, and we're going to crank it over by hand first, take it from there. So it has been 20 years, it's a bit longer than I expected, but oh, the hell with it, let's get it going anyway. Let's see if we can't crank this motor over by hand first, shall we?
Alright.
What do we got? Alright, fan belt doesn't really want to turn it over. Oh, here we go.
Hey.
Got a bit of movement. Not the easiest, but it is moving.
Which is a good start.
We might rock him back and forth a bit. Oops.
Slipping. What size the nut in the crank? Is it a... yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's pretty big. We might do that. So we might find a suitable size socket and a breaker bar, and we might just get this motor rocking back and forth a bit first. And as long as we know that we can crank it over a few times, we'll start putting it back together and fire him up. Righto, we've got the 15/16 socket on an extension bar. Let's just make sure that we can get it moving over a little bit. Yes, we do. Got the fan hitting, that's actually moving quite freely now. Pretty happy with that. So why don't we remove the fan belt, then I can actually spin this crank over a couple of times, and really we're just going to put this motor back together. Beautiful, I think we're going to get it running as planned.
Nice.
She'll be right.
She'll be right.
Okay, fan belt's off. We should be able to spin this right around now, so let's have a look. Look at that. Oh, a bit tight there. Hang on.
Ooh, bit of a lumpy spot.
That's all right. Okay,
Ooh,
I think
bit
we
of
have
water.
some water in there.
Yeah.
There we go. Let's work him through. She'll be right. There we go.
It's the good thing about plugs out. No hydro lock, no, you know.
That's right. Well, this is She'll Be Right Garage for a reason. We only need 1,000 k's out of this motor, so I really don't give that much of a shit. I don't care if that cylinder sort of half drops out a bit and loses a bit of compression. This feels pretty bloody good.
Yep.
So I am going to make the outrageous claim, Stewie, that we are going to get this bloody motor running by 7 o'clock today. I reckon Parko can eat his hat pretty pleased. And
I want to see that.
that is all. Mate, I reckon we're good to go. Let's get these plugs back in.
Yep.
Let's get a rocker assembly happening. I might look at lining up the timing for top dead centre for number 1, so we can put the dizzy in. But I reckon we'll have this up and running within a few hours' time.
Nice.
Righto, so if you actually have a look in where my finger is, we've got some timing markers on the harmonic balancer already. Now, because the crank turns over 2 times for 1 time of the cam, Stewie and I need to actually work out when we're getting our compression stroke. So what I'm going to do is turn over the motor. He's going to put some pressure on this lifter, and as soon as this lifter opens and then closes and we hit the timing marker, that's when we know that it's top dead center, and that's when we can actually have the number 1 cylinder fire on the distributor. So let's get that sorted right now, I think, eh? Yeah, crank him over. It's on top dead center now. So what's happening there, Stewie, as I crank it?
Coming up.
It's coming up,
yep.
Okay. That sounds like then, as a result, when I come back around,
Yeah.
that should start coming down soon.
Yeah, it's bottomed out there.
Alright, so we're on our timing marker. We're now at top dead center for the firing stroke of number 1 cylinder.
Nice.
So we're going to put the distributor in place as it is there. We're not going to crank this motor until we have that distributor in place and have the leads in place. So, but there's no need to crank it anymore now. Anyway, let's get the plugs in, let's get the rocker assembly in, let's get the manifold and distributor together. Just let's fire it up, come on, let's do it. So Stewie's just gone off to buy a new set of points, and while he's doing that, I'm going to muck around and try to line up this distributor for number 1 top dead center. This is more or less how the dizzy sits in the first instance, but I've taken the cap off of SLEEZY and I've marked number 1 cylinder here. So all I really need to do now that we're dealing with top dead center is make sure that this rotor button, once it's fully installed, lines up with this lead here once everything's all together, and I know that's number 1, and I'll work out the firing order later, so that's not a big drama there. So righto, so let's get this in roughly in place. If we look at how that sits, the distributor, that's sitting there. This is number 1 here. It is the first cylinder to the left or clockwise of this clip, so we want to make sure that this rotor is actually sitting about there once it's installed. So as it goes down, it actually shifts, so we've got to do it a couple of times. We need to make sure it lines up. That's in place there. I can rotate that there. If we have a look there, that's pretty much lines up to number 1 almost. I've got to turn this dizzy a bit more. It's actually sitting there. We have a look and we pull it up and down, that's close enough for me to say we're going to get this started. So there we are. So here's the points roughly set by eye. If you have a bit of a close look at that gap, it's meant to be between 0.3 and 0.4 from memory. And just move this distributor back and forth, you can see that gap's opening. It's enough to get it running. We'll fine tune it once we put it in SLEEZY, but you know, if you're doing a bit of a bush repair, you can do it approximately like this. I've done it before and I've driven quite a few thousand kilometres on doing it by eye, so you know, you don't always need a set of feeler gauges, but it certainly helps. These studs in the head look pretty shagged as well, so we'll get rid of these at the same time. I've already cracked them loose. We'll just run the standard bolts with the standard rocker covers basically from SLEEZY. Makes it a little bit easier. Alright, so I'm going to clean up the mounting surfaces of the heads here in anticipation. So we'll just run a sharpening block over it. I'll clean it up quite nicely. Just want to, even though it's definitely a surely right process what we're doing, once we get this motor up and running, we're not planning to take the manifold off again, so we may as well get these mounting surfaces relatively smooth and clean whilst we're at it.
Do you use any Hylamar or anything, that kind of thing on these gaskets, or?
No, look, generally speaking, the gaskets are pretty good.
Yep.
I'll use the red Celastic on these corners here.
Yep.
For the valley. Outside of that, you know, I've never really found that I need to do it.
Yep.
You can, but they're usually pretty good.
Yep.
And you know, the mounting surface now is not too bad, so should be right. Right, so these are SLEEZY's original push rods, which are a lot cleaner, but a few of them are bent, so we're just going to go using a bit of a flat edge here and get a bit of a gauge as to how flat it is. That one looks alright, I'm happy with that. You know, so we go over it a little bit, we find the ones that are decent, that's alright, I'm happy with that. There's at least a couple of bent ones, so as we rotate it around, we're just sort of looking for the gap between the straight edge and the push rod. That one's alright as well. This one is clearly bent, and as you can see when you rotate it around, you're getting quite the gap. So, you know, that one's over the shoulder. And, you know, so we're going to go through all of it. We're going to pick all the best ones from SLEEZY that aren't bent. And, you know, there's probably 2 or 3 that are bent that we can't use. Outside of that, we will use the ones, you know, the original sort of shittier, rustier looking ones from this motor that we're trying to get running. But I don't see us having to use any more than a couple. As you can see, that's fairly well bent. That's another one that's over the shoulder. You know, so there's at least 2. This one's looking pretty bent. If we actually zoom in a bit, you can see a bit of gap there. So that's no good. You don't want to use that. That's gone. You know, here's another one that's looking a little bit bent. So, you know, that's 4 out of 16 that's bent. That's another one over the shoulder. See you later. So at the very least, we know we need to pick 4 of them out. This one's not too bad. Has got a bit of bent, bit of a gap there, so that's another one over the shoulder. So whoever worked on SLEEZY has done an amazing job at somehow bending all these push rods. But look, most of them seem to be good enough for what we're going to do. We only need to get 1,000 Ks out of this motor anyhow before we strip it out. So, you know, close enough is good enough in this instance. You know, if we were restoring a Landau engine, you know, for the other project, we'd make sure everything's, you know, bought brand new and rebuilt appropriately. But, you know, this is the task that we're doing. It's fit for purpose. It's not ideal, obviously, long term, but it's close enough is good enough. So this one's okay. So as it stands, going through all these push rods, we need another 4 from our donor engine. We'll find the best ones out of them, the ones that are the least rusty and the least blocked up. And let's get this rocker assembly together. All the rockers themselves from SLEEZY are pretty good, so you know, I don't see us taking too much longer to get him up and running now. All of our push rods have been worked out. We've got a nice set of 16 here now. I'll get them ready. I'm actually one short. I'll go and get another one that's decent. Yeah, that's decent. She'll be right. There we go. So our next step is to put these rockers back on. What we're actually going to do is we're going to put them all on loosely now, but any rocker where the camshaft is pushing the lifter up, we can't, you know, compress fully. We can't bolt it down fully because we don't want to compress the spring at the same time. So anywhere that's easy to just literally bolt it straight down as it is, we're going to do. So we're going to rotate the motor over so that we can actually make sure that there's no spring tension when we actually bolt these down. Pretty important. You know, roller rockers are really easy. You can just slam them on, you rotate them around, you adjust them. With anything like this, you usually got to rotate it, you know, a couple of times before you find the sweet spot on all of them. So just a bit of a heads up if you're going to fool around with it in the future. Yeah, we're cutting corners and all the rest of it on this motor, but still kind of important to deal with. So we are still going to do that the right way at least.
I guess in some ways it's a similar process to if you're doing valve lash without the hydraulic lifters.
Essentially, I mean, the hydraulic lifters are taking up that that lash, but you know, I don't know what sort of cam. This was supposedly a big cam that was in this motor. You know, really couldn't tell you. It's been that long ago. It's that much of an unknown, but regardless, in any event, with hydraulic lifters, we've just got to take it reasonably easy. That's binding the spring a bit, so we'll turn that over later. That one is 2, so we've got 1, 2 here that need to be done later. That has to be done, so we've actually got all the top ones have to be done at the moment. As does this one, so we've got a few that need a bit of mucking around. Alright, so time to do the valley here. We'll just line up the inlet manifold gaskets. That's pretty good there. That's a nice little fit. Do the same thing over here. Nice little fit. We've got to work out which one of these is correct. That looks close, but we'll try to fit the other side. Now, yeah, that's pretty good there. Now, I just want to show a trick for people. As we line this up, so if you look at the original manifold, they actually have like a rubber style gasket where there's got some locating dowels here, but being a cork gasket, we don't actually have it. But when we line it up, you'll notice as I push it down, it sort of doesn't really sit in very nice. If we have a look here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to chop this at a slight angle. If you have a look here, that will help it sit in the V a lot better, like so. We're still going to run some silicone in the V, but this will help assist. And if you have a look now, unlike when I tried just before, there's no real gaps in the corners anymore, so that's going to make it a lot easier and a lot less likely to create any oil leaks. So it's just something to be aware of when you're using aftermarket gaskets, that they don't always take that into consideration, so you actually have to do it yourself. And that one fits a lot better now as well. So what we'll do is we'll get a bit of the old red silicone, put a couple of dabs on the here and there's, help hold the gasket in place. That way when we put the manifold on, it's not going to inadvertently drop down. And don't be shy to cram a little bit in the corner here, like so. A little bit along the base, not much, doesn't require much. You see that starting to create a nice seal. A little bit again on top once it's in. And that'll prevent a few oil leaks, so do the same thing on the front. Because there's nothing more frustrating than an inlet manifold oil leak. And based on that, we can now pop this manifold in place, nice and easy. There we go. It's looking dangerously like a motor that's going to run now.
It is indeed. I'm looking forward to hearing the noise.
It's going to be noisy with no headers at all.
No headers yet.
Well, that doesn't look very healthy. Rightio. So I think the next step is to put a bit of lubrication on the top of these rocker arms, and we'll get these rocker covers on. Make sure we plug these holes as mentioned, get a starter motor in place, get a bit of fuel down the carburetor, and see if we actually get a bit of life out of it once we connect these high tension leads. Alright, so we'll lock these rocker cover gaskets in place again with a little bit of goop going all the way around just to hold it so it doesn't squeeze out too much. Quite frustrating when you're dealing with cork gaskets, they don't really like to stay in place when you're fitting them. So this should resolve that here. Splash a little bit of oil on it. Not much, just enough to help a little bit. There we go. Alright, so next step is the leads, starter motor and starting the car hopefully, or starting the motor. So as we mentioned, I've marked this as number 1. I'm going to use the ruddy ute as a reference just so we can get along this all up. So it makes it nice and easy when you've got a Cleveland on hand to do so with. So that is cylinder number 1 all sorted. Let's get the rest in. Sorting out the fuel filter there, going a line from the fuel pump to the carburetor. Thank you, Stewie. We'll take SLEEZY's one. Looks considerably better, just to say the least.
Flow direction this way.
Only a mild difference, mate.
Yeah. Still got dirt inside it.
So I've sourced an old starter motor that I used on the hot rod when it still had a Cleveland. You can see it's actually a 6-cylinder mini reduction motor out of an EB or an EF, something like that. I've hacked it out there. It'll do just fine for a Miles Cleveland or a Windsor, so I'm going to chuck that in for the time being. Got some wires here. Going to hook up the battery, as you can see here. We're just going to chuck it on the chassis rail for the time being. So literally it's a matter of hooking up the starter motor, dumping some fuel in, and we're good to go. Interestingly enough, there may be some truth to the rebuild. Have a look at that on the back of the head, which I just noticed. That's usually the stamp of an engine rebuilder.
Okay.
Not sure which one, but I believe that's usually for warranty claims. So if it actually overheats, this will fall off and they won't honour your warranty.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it appears that it has been rebuilt. Whoever sold it to me was probably legitimate about it, so happy days.
It's a double win. Not only is it rebuilt, it hasn't fallen off.
Yes. Yeah, that's on. So we've got our green is our positive lead, blue is our earth.
And then your little solenoid lead down there, is it?
Yeah, we've got a solenoid lead here, so
nice.
we'll touch that to the battery. That will make it click in
Mm-hmm.
and crank the starter motor. And this here will be our positive lead from the coil, going over to the battery. So I think we can actually connect this battery now.
All right.
Put a bit of fuel in and take it from there.
How different does it look to this morning? From this morning?
It's a world of difference.
Mm.
And there's a bit of a test. That's turning the motor. So I think we're good to go.
Sounds like it's got a fair bit of compression too.
Sounds like it's got compression.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a bad thing at all.
No.
So there's our positive connected for the coil. We're going to jam a bit of fuel down the carburetor. Jam a bit of fuel in our little container that's hopefully the fuel pump still works and picks it up. But in any event, I reckon as soon as I jam some fuel down this carburetor and crank it, we should have some signs of life. Let's see. We might as well have the choke open, bit of fuel down the guts. Don't be too shy with it. Get some fuel ready for our pump. Choke on. I reckon we need a bit more fuel.
Yep.
Here you go again. That's close.
It is very close, isn't it? Doesn't look like there's any fuel in the filter yet.
No, not yet. I'm wondering if we've got timing just slightly off.
Mm. So which way's advance and which way's retard?
Oh, you're asking me difficult questions at the moment. I'm just going to move it and see what it does.
Sounds like a fine plan.
This is She'll Be Right Garage.
Okay. Oh, that's the bucket of fire, the
Yeah.
extinguisher.
Yep.
Yes, so the bucket's directly under the blanket.
I'm out of
You got a fire blanket?
no. I was not expecting that.
No. Yeah. Just your lead. Burn a bit of hole in your airline, but
Oh, whatever.
so
Well, it's funny. Hey, it's funny. Righto, what I might do is, we don't know if this fuel pump's working. We will maybe look at getting a longer hose, fuel out a lot further.
further away, yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
But it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
After our small fire mishap, we're again.
We're ready to go again.
Just as well we, as stupid as we are, we do at least keep fire extinguishers handy. So keep that in mind, folks. Here we
Yeah.
go.
That timing made all the difference, didn't it?
Sounded not half bad.
I reckon it was too retarded before. A bit of advance made a big difference.
Well, realistically, we need some more fuel in this carburetor.
Yep.
What I might do is I might put a bit of fuel down these little throats here. We'll fill up the bowls of the carburetor, so at least if we get it running, look, you know, running it for a minute or two is fine without any radiator or alternator or anything like that. So we'll at least get it up and running. We'll satisfy ourselves. If we see this fill up with fuel, we know the fuel pump's working. If not, we've got to swap over with SLEEZY when we actually do transfer it. But looks like we've got to run the motor.
Okay.
Alright, just put a bit of fuel down into the bowls. It should run for a few more seconds. Let's try it.
The music of my people.
It's a running motor.
Nice
And with
work.
that, we're starting to get some fuel.
Oh, beautiful.
So let's have another look at that. See if we can squirt a bit more fuel down. The whole of you starting to pump a little bit.
So that's like an accelerator pump?
So we may try and start it again without adding any more fuel.
Yeah.
Might actually run by itself. That was pretty quick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We do need just a little bit more fuel. That's plenty. Yeah.
Love you.
Like that.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Mission accomplished. SLEEZY has a motor.
Nice work, mate. Well done. And 3 hours ahead of schedule.
3 hours ahead of schedule. Where's Parko? He's not here.
That's
I
it.
want to hear him. I want to hear him eat his words. All right, I would call that done.
Mate.
What do you reckon we take advantage of this extra time? Let's chop the rest of this car up and get rid of it, eh?
Done deal.
Done.
Free.
Righto, boys and girls, that's us all done and dusted. As we can see, one Cleveland motor ready to go for Sleazy. It's now a good runner. Yeah. Certainly a lot different from how it started. Thanks for your help, Stewie.
No, thank you.
Wasn't too much of a
no, it went smoothly.
Wasn't too much of a stitch up for a change.
In the scheme of things.
Except for catching on fire, but
you get that on the big jobs.
You do. You get that on the bigger jobs. So. Anyway, folks, join us for the next episode when we actually chuck it in. Hopefully there won't be as many stitch-ups, such as setting fire to Sleazy. No promises though, so do join us for that. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
See ya.
Get involved. Go on, put your hands on it, Stewie.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you had to say it. You had to say it. Sack of crap. How dare you?
It's getting darker, isn't it? Yeah. Yep.
Again, this is the wrong way around. That's the beauty of the fucking direction. Bloody motherfucker. Play with it a little bit back and forth, see if we can get it to start a little bit better. It's a cold motor. It's
Yep.
hasn't been started for 20 years.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't get much colder than that. Apart from the fact that it's sunny and 25.